Hey everyone, I'm Sam from Cosplay, and in this video I'm going to be sculpting a pumpkin. I'm going to attempt to be doing a goblin of some sort. So I've got that sketched out here. It's not completely necessary to draw your design first, since we're going to be removing the skin anyway. I just wanted to go ahead and see if a design I was roughly wanting would fit on here nicely. So I just sketched this on with Sharpie. If you do sketch a design on your pumpkin with Sharpie and you end up not liking it and want to do something else, you can just erase it with some isopropyl alcohol and a paper towel. I did take some pictures of this just to remind myself what I was going for, in case I forget after the skin's removed. So first step, we gotta remove the skin. I'm gonna be using this larger sculpting tool. Sometimes the skin can be a bit tough, so I'm wearing a glove as well to save my fingies and hand a little bit. And I'm just gonna kinda try to rip into the skin and remove it like this. And it can be a bit hard sometimes. Once you catch an edge of the skin though, it starts getting a bit easier and it like chips off in bigger sections like that. I got a tablecloth down to try to minimize the mess. I got this white pumpkin just because I thought it looked cool. I don't actually know if it'll be good for sculpting, but we're gonna find out. If you're having difficulty catching an edge with the tool, you can just cut a line. This is just another sculpting tool, but you can use like a razor or a knife and just cut a shallow line into the skin, and then that'll make a line that the sculpting tool can latch onto. Got my pumpkin on Lazy Susan just to help with getting the different angles, because it's a heavy pumpkin. This one's like 45 pounds. So I've got the skin removed. This one seems to be a good pumpkin. It's nice and moist. Some pumpkins you'll get the skin off and they'll be like really hard and like dried out. Those aren't going to be good for sculpting. So I normally buy 2 pumpkins just in case one's a dud. It seems like the walls are pretty thick. It's going to be hard to tell until we get in there, but you can kind of like knock on it and like push on it and see if there's any spots that feel like they're giving out. This one feels pretty good. So for the sculpting, I'm going to be using a decent amount of these like cheap sculpting tools just because they're sturdy and I won't really care if they break getting into the hard pumpkin. Dental tools are also really good because they're like solid metal and you can really get in there. I think this is a scaling tool. I like this one a lot because it's got like a sharp-ish edge that's angled, so it's good for like scooping and drawing in the design. So now I'm gonna sketch in my design again. This is why you don't need to draw with the Sharpie, because you're gonna have to redo it anyway, but I just like to double check that I'm gonna have room. And it's probably gonna be a little bit hard to see. You can kind of see the eye there, I did. But you'll be able to see it in person. So you don't have to be super accurate with your tool sketching in here. It's going to change a bit as we go. And you can have fun with it. It doesn't have to be exactly like you initially wanted it to be. Since this is going to be subtractive sculpting, we're going to operate under the assumption that we can't put material back. There's some exceptions to that with pumpkins. You can kind of glue chunks on or attach chunks with skewers or things like that. But for the most part, the material we move, it's not going back. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to be super careful, because if you have a good pumpkin, there's going to be enough room and depth that you can fix your mistakes by just sculpting deeper into the pumpkin. And you want the sculpt to be relatively deep anyway, so that your details kind of pop. I'm going to start with the eyes. I'm just going to start digging in here and try to start getting deep enough that I can make a round shape for the eyes. So I'm kind of just digging in the outline. Once we start digging in here, it'll also help determine if you have like really shallow pumpkin walls, which could indicate you got a bad pumpkin and you got to get another one. And I'm just going to use some tool to try to round this eye over. It's not going to be perfect on the first attempt. This is kind of just like pulling the edge of the pumpkin to the center. Does that make sense? Like hooking your tool on the edge and pulling it to the center to round over these hard edges. Ideally, if the eye is a sphere, the center is going to be the highest point, so you don't want it to like flatten out before you get around the edges. Probably see me switching tools a lot, either because one feels like it's not really sharp enough and it isn't really catching the edges like I like, or it's not getting in there the way I want. So once you get your first whatever detail you pick, you can then feel your edges and see, does this feel like it's starting to be mushy? Is it starting to feel like it's got a little bit of give to it? Mine's still pretty solid. We haven't gone very far into it, so that's good. You always want to be checking as you go. Does it feel like you've got some give to your pumpkin, like you can push through it? Because if so, you might be running out of pumpkin space. At the start, you don't have to worry too much about that though. I'm not necessarily trying to make it good, I'm just trying to make it fun. That's why I picked a Goblin, because it's going to be kind of scrungly. Gives me some leeway and maybe some weird anatomy, like I don't have to worry if the eyes are perfect. I'm going to continue on and try to get in this other eye. Then we'll move on to another part. I've got some eyes roughed in now. I think now I'm going to do the brows. You can really do it in any order you want. You think the mouth's going to be fun, go for the mouth. You think the nose is going to be fun, do the nose. Whatever. Don't feel like you have to do like a specific order or anything. The more details you do, the more you'll realize, like the first thing you did, you need to sculpt in deeper. And then the second thing you did, you got to sculpt in deeper, etc. So you don't have to worry about getting something super refined off the start, because the other parts are going to influence where those are and how things are shaped. Started doing some lines like this to get kind of like some wrinkly looking things mapped out. Just like the eyes, a lot of this I'm just going to be putting the shape in and then kind of rounding it over. I'm not going for super crisp, hard shapes. And a lot of the refining can be done later once we've really got it all in there. If you're finding that pulling towards the edge is taking chunks off, sometimes that'll happen just depending on the grain of the pumpkin or your tool or whatever, however it catches. You can also go parallel to that edge and shave it down that way. For some spots, you'll probably need to use more pressure to get in there, or use a lighter touch on the top. I like these kind of more squared off tools for getting the shapes in there quick, because you have a little corner that you can really mash in there and dig deeper, and then the flat edge that you can start smoothing things out with. Starting on the nose here, doing a bit of a flatter nose, just because I don't want to deal with attaching more pumpkin for like a long goblin nose. I'm doing kind of a more snub-nosed goblin. I've started going a lot deeper on the eyes and trying to round them over underneath the eye a little bit. The main reason for that, the pumpkin's kind of tilted back this way, so if I want the face to be more straight, I need to like bring the features forward this way a little bit. I mean, it's fine if in the end he's just like kind of tilted upwards, that's okay. I've also moved the eyes a little bit. The deeper you sculpt, the more you can change on your stuff, because you're just scraping away the old things you sculpted anyway. Also started trying to put in some scrungly nose forms here. Kind of difficult to do a video on, because it's like just remove the material till it looks like the thing you want it to look like, which isn't necessarily helpful information. But just like sculpting, I feel like in those videos I just say just mush the clay till it looks like what you want it to look like. As long as you're having fun with your pumpkin, then it'll be a good time. I've got a lot of shapes and wrinkles and ridges and stuff going here, and it's looking a little bit messy. So I'm going to try to sculpt all this deeper and get past this initial white layer with the green lines in it. Try to get it look more all together instead of a bunch of separate chunks. For sections like the inside of this eye here that I want to give a lot of depth, I've been using one of my dental tools, either the little tooth scaler one, or there's this one that's got like a little point on one end and this kind of little scooper on the other. And I'll just get in there and just dig like in to the side, so making this an overhang and this come underneath. So then it casts like some shadow on it and it just gets the eye deeper in there. I've also used these to kind of crisp up some of the edges here, just so it gives it a little bit of a harsher line to give it more delineation. If your pumpkin starts getting a little too wet, or if it starts getting like little chunky bits like this, I find sometimes when using these smaller tools it kind of like churns it up and makes little chunky bits. I just use a paper towel and wipe that away. Otherwise, I'm just continuing to try to have fun with it. There was a point there where I was starting to really not like it, and I just almost shaved off all of what I had. I still kept all the rough forms here, you can see, but I've moved this eye a lot. I'm probably going to move this eye some. This one's a lot higher than this one. I'm not super concerned about that. He's a weird little goblin guy, so Sometimes when I don't have like a specific reference, it can be a little bit tough to determine if I feel like it's going well, but on the other hand, then I'm not bound to one specific design, and I can have the freedom to do whatever I want here and go whatever direction I want with this. So on this side, I'm trying to move this eye in a little bit more and give it that bit of overhang like I did on the other side. So I'm just using my tool to kind of dig away. It can be kind of hard to see what's going on in there, just because it's so deep in and you've got the rest of the pumpkin hanging over it. So I just try to feel it out. And then I have this tool that's like a little rectangle that's kind of small that I get in there and try to round it over like I did before with the eyes. That's looking pretty good. And then we just kind of follow where the sphere would be. Continue to round that over a bit. I'll dry that off a bit so I can see what I'm doing in there. That's pretty good. So then this remaining bit of eye I'll kind of shave down and make it like the side of the eye detail and kind of give him a little bit of a lid. Starting on the teeth, and I'm doing the teeth kind of similar to the eyes, where I'm digging out some of the mass underneath this lip here, and then using one of these rectangular tools to round it over. And I mostly just want to make these look like they're a little bit underneath this lip and not just connected straight to the lip like over here. I could have gone with some more intricate, smaller teeth, but I thought the big exaggerated teeth would be more fun. For this bottom lip, I'm doing the same thing as the top, and I'm just cutting across the teeth that I've already started here, and just scooping out at an angle downward so that there's a lip to round over. Here you can kind of see what it looked like before. I kind of cut in the teeth with this. Then I've got the bottom lip in here. I'm sculpting the teeth a little bit further in so that these bottom ones look like they're coming out from the bottom lip. I also dug out a whole bunch over here on this side so it looks like the mouth wraps back around like a mouth would. So for this I'm basically just like hollowing out along the inside edge of the skin. Also separated the teeth a little bit, tool, to give them a little bit better readability from a distance. If you don't have these dental tools, you can still use these cheaper sculpting tools and use any of the ones with the little triangle edge. That works pretty well as well. Doing the same thing. I just prefer the dental tools because they feel a little bit more sturdy. Just on this pumpkin I've had a few of my sculpting tools, the heads are ripped off. I've had to reattach them. So what I did on this other side basically was just take this tool and just start digging out in there. Let me cut off some of this tooth here first. There's a sharper tool. I just started digging out at a steep angle. Out these teeth a little bit and then try to round the teeth out back into this little cavern. then that's starting to look kind of like what I did on this side. So now I'm going to continue this lip around the bottom here. First I need to sculpt some of these teeth so that I have room to dig that lip out. And then once the gap is big enough between the lip and the tooth, I can stick my tool in there and start rounding it over a bit. I need to shave down these teeth a little bit, but now it looks like he's got a bottom lip. To smooth out some areas, I feel like the tools with the rounder edge do a little bit better job of that, because then you don't get the hard edge of these square tools that can accidentally put some more divots where you don't want them. So I think I'm almost done with this. I'm just going around smoothing out some areas and digging out all the little gunky bits from where I was digging with my dental tools. I think I'm satisfied with my pumpkin, so I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I did this in a couple hours, but if you plan on doing yours over the course of a couple days, you can just wet some paper towels and put those all over the exposed pumpkin flesh, and then put a plastic bag around that to keep it moist overnight. Also, if your pumpkin starts to dry out a little bit while you're sculpting it, you can spray it with some water, and that'll help with the process as well. I'll put links to some of the sculpting tools I used in the description. If you have any questions, feel free to put those in the comments, and I'll do my best to assist. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.